Hey everybody, it's Miss Lux, and I want to talk about your introduction paragraphs and what you can do to make them hot. So HOT stands for hook, orientation, and thesis. The hook is the first part of the paragraph. It's a general statement on the overall topic of the essay. The orientation is a sentence or two that introduces and connects the text and the author to the hook. And the thesis, of course, defines the argument and ideally the supporting evidence as well. Think of it as an inverted triangle where you begin with very general idea, and as you move through the paragraph, you move through the most specific sentence, which is, of course, the thesis. Okay, I'm going to do an example for you guys using one of the prompts from the diagnostic essay. Some readers interpret My Papa's Waltz as the speaker's memory of a drunken dance with his father. Others view it as a memory of physical abuse. In your essay, explain how this poem should be understood by pointing to specific words and lines. And this is going to be a really oversimplified example. I'm just going to do one or two sentences for each of these. It would suffice as an introduction paragraph, but I would probably flesh it out a bit more before my final draft. So for the hook, it can be something simple like, time has a way of altering people's memories. Sometimes it helps them to gloss over the bad times. Sometimes it magnifies the cruelty of reality. You could even use a statistic or a quote maybe about abuse or dancing, but then you would have to introduce and reference the source. And don't let that deter you, but you can just say something very simple. Just make sure it's on the overall topic that's going to help lead your reader closer to the thesis. And so now I need a sentence or two to introduce my primary source and the author. Those two are required in the introduction, and I want to connect my primary source to these ideas in the hook. So I could say, in Theodore Rotke's My Papa's Waltz, the speaker is looking back on such a memory. Readers often, I always make that typo, readers, not radars. Readers often debate about whether or not this is a recollection of an actual dance or a remembrance of abuse at the hands of a drunken man. Okay, so I've introduced the title and the author, and I've made a connection from the idea of memory that I introduced here in the hook to memory here in the primary text. So I'm getting more specific with each sentence. And now my thesis has to be the most specific sentence in the paragraph. It's going to bring all these ideas together. So I would say, given the description of the father, the mother's reaction, and the choice of descriptive words, this poem should be interpreted as a memory of physical abuse. And here I've got the argument, the way this poem should be interpreted following the supporting topics. It could go before, it could go either way as far as organization. But what you'll notice about the supporting topics is that these are going to be how they appear in the essay. So my first paragraph is going to be how the description of the father, the whiskey on his breath, for example, means the poem exhibits signs of abuse. My second paragraph will discuss how the mother's reaction, her countenance, means this has happened before. And then my third body paragraph would look at the choice of descriptive words, battered, scraped, death, beat, and so on, support my main idea that the poem is about abuse. So to review, I begin my introduction with a hook, which is a very general statement on the topic of the essay. It's not about the primary source or my main idea yet. It's just to hook the reader and start leading them to those more specific ideas. And then the orientation, which introduces the title and the author of the primary sources, that's required, and connects them to the ideas from the hook. And then the thesis, which is, of course, the most specific It gives the argument and ideally the evidence that's going to support, illustrate, and defend that main idea. For the conclusion, you would actually do the opposite. You would begin with a restatement of the thesis, and you want to use different wording in the conclusion, and you work backwards from there by summarizing the main points, and then you end with another general statement on the overall topic. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to make your introductions hot and to email me with any questions. Have a great one.